Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel.
So, onward. Okay, sway bar time. I'm just making sure I didn't leave anything off of that page. Okay, so looks like we've got pieces for the front sway bars as well, but not all of the pieces, it would seem. Two long grub screws. And a couple of M2s. And two short, small grub screws. Okay. Just to start prepping stuff. These little guys are going to go into two of these ball sockets. So I'll thread them in and out, get that Loctite spread around. Now, these are threaded to have a grub screw on either side, but the directions aren't calling for that. We're just supposed to use one. But that's something that might be added down the road. Put a second grub screw in just to get a little more better hold on the sway bar. Probably not necessary, but just take note that there is that second hole there, so, and that you're not going to be using it. Now, you definitely want to keep this little piece of plastic. You're going to want to leave it around the sway bar so you know what size sway bar. Some sway bars come laser etched with the size of them. These do not, so you definitely want to hang on to that. I wonder if it's heat shrink. It'd be nice to be able to shrink that down onto here so it doesn't get away. Might try using a heat gun on it and see if that'll do it, but I'm not going to worry about that this minute. Okay, I'm looking for the end caps for those. So the build continues. The 2.8 millimeter rear sway bar arrived. Now, if you recall, all the setup sheets, including the stock setup sheet, call for a 2.7. There is no 2.7 millimeter available on the website for the MP10, the MP9. As you can see, this says MP9. They obviously, made this before they brought out the 10. They haven't, they don't update shipping packages. In any event, let's go ahead and pull this out. And I decided, since I have the 2.6, that comes stock with it, and the directions do say 2.6. I'm going to go in the direction of the builds, which was heavier than stock, and go with the 2.8 and just see how it goes. It's easily swapped, but this gives me, you know, a range of higher and lower than stock. Because if you recall, when I went over all the parts that I've picked up for this kit, I picked up 2 or 3 levels of sway bar below the stock, what is in this case 26 versus 27, which is what I thought it was based on the documentation that was available. So I've got a range of stiffer or softer to play with and tune with. Now, I would imagine that the stiffer sway bars, and I also have the same for the front, stiffer sway bars are going to be more useful on very well groomed, very smooth tracks where I can run heavier sway bars to control the car's listing left and right, and run a softer spring to make use of that smoother surface, not having to worry about absorbing big jolts and stuff like that. I can run a milder spring, and I have these springs that Kyosho makes. They make their standard colored oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else. But this is one of the advantages of the way I'm building my current kits for this winter. The Kyosho and my Serpent and my my short course truck, 4-wheel drive short course truck that I'm building, the Techno, all run 16 millimeter diameter springs. So not only do I have the springs that I've gotten for each vehicle from those manufacturers, but I can interchange those. So what I'll be doing is the same thing I did with the Losi and back when and my 110 kits, is take all of those springs and organize them by weight from lightest to stiffest, regardless of manufacturer. That way, if I want to go, you know, I want to soften the rear a little bit, and the, you know, the jump between how stiff the one Kyosho spring and the next one is a pretty broad space. There may be another spring that I have from another manufacturer like Techno that falls in between as far as its stiffness. And they have some really nice low frequency 16 millimeter springs that are just really plush until they start getting down. It's almost like a progressive kind of stiffening, but you know, during the first part of the compression, it's really malleable, and that would do really nice on a lot of different types of terrain. So you know, all of this is going to come into play in tuning and testing, and we'll see how much of that I can get. I may find myself more working through this winter developing these vehicles in the indoor tracks, and kind of learning what they're capable of. Excuse me. And then really, you know, hitting my stride, getting their performance dialed in time for the summer indoor and outdoor seasons. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, we are on to, let's see, I had to kind of put everything away for a couple of days, and so I'm kind of reorganizing. We're on step 19, and what we're doing is setting up the sway bar. Now, I kind of put a lot of these little pieces away, and so these are the two sway bar linkages that we've pulled out. And if you recall, I'm doing as much of the hardware with titanium as I can. I have a titanium kit from Kyosho, but it does not have everything. So some things I may end up going to like Lunsford for and things like that. So in any event, also I'm gonna want to test these to see if they are shrink tubing at some point. I'm not going to do it this minute because I don't have my heat gun set up at the moment. So let's see. We are going to be using a couple of 3x18 grub screws. It should be these two right here. And they refer to them as set screws. And then we've got a couple of smaller ones. And let me zoom this in a little bit better for us. Okay, that's a little better. What I really need to do is set this stuff, the chassis, aside for the moment. Now, these little guys here are on the parts trees where you have your differential cases for front and rear. So keep an eye for those. So our long set screws are going to be going through the arm here and through this ball socket. So you don't need to like push it beyond where it's just gone flush. That's about where it's going to bottom out, and you don't need to screw it in beyond that. So that gives us our linkage there, and now we need our other side over here. Okay. So our sway bar is going to drop into those two eyelets, and let's go ahead and anchor it here at the rear of the case. And let's see what we need for screws for that. Okay, we need a couple of little button heads, and these guys I am not trying to replace with titanium. They are just super small. Now, 2 fingers on these, don't over tighten. You don't want to strip, and that would be very easy to do, and you're going to be stripping your case, and you're going to find yourself replacing those cases. Incidentally, a lot of these pieces are easily acquired and not very expensive. You can find them at some hobby stores, surprisingly enough. Usually you would think that's the kind of thing you'd need to order, but apparently these get broken from time to time, and or people strip them out and they need to be replaced. So Okay, so this is where our 2 set screws come in. We're gonna put them in here to make sure that that this can rotate up and down like this, but that it can't jiggle around like that. So my recommendation is to gently screw them in until they touch down, and then back them off gently, a little bit at a time, until we get the right movement. So there we go. We can move them up and down smoothly, but we're not getting any jiggle going. And you don't want it to be tight at the same time. If you give this too much freedom of movement, you're gonna get some wobble, and that's gonna take away from the initial functionality of that. So it's not gonna be as fine an action. So now we can just go ahead and fit these on here like that. And our initial setting is 1 millimeter of protrusion. Now I'm gonna just kind of eyeball that for right now, and I'll worry about that later when I'm on the setup board. It's good to set these so that you're basically pointing the driver straight up and down. That way you don't have to worry about being able to get to the screw later, like when there's a wheel on here. So there is our sway bar action. One moves up, the other one wants to move up. Okay. So now we've got our mud guards, and just, by the way, we're on step number 20. We are still in bag number 4, and we are 1 step away from mounting this rear clip onto our chassis. So we need a couple of 3x6 button heads, and I believe I have those in titanium. Maybe I did not buy enough of them, or I just didn't think those were necessary. Let me see. This is the problem without not having a real kit. Okay, these are 5s, M3x5s. That's interesting. Let me just flip through here and see where else I have small screws like that. If I do, if I'm not gonna be needing them somewhere more important, I'll go ahead and use them, the ones that I have back here. And see, basically what I did to put together my my collection of actually no, I'm thinking of another kit, I'm sorry. These are the ones that came with my my Tamiya kit. I'm sorry, I'm just building too many cars at one time. On my Techno, I had to basically put together my own titanium screw kit. And what I did was I went through the directions and I wrote down each bolt type that I came across as I came across it, going page to page. And then if I came across something that I had already seen, like 4x10, I added, you know, in this case, 2 more to that count until I had gone through the directions and covered all the different sizes and types of hardware, be it button head or cap screws or flatheads. And then I ordered hardware based on that list. So, but in this case, I had a kit, but that kit was not for the MP10e specifically. It was for the MP10, which is most likely the MP10 Nitro version, And even though it's extremely similar, there are going to be some places where the hardware is here and places where it's not. So let me see what I have in my own supply of titanium hardware. Okay, these are all flatheads. And you know, actually, this is probably a great place to use aluminum because these are not majorly weight bearing. So I'm going to save these for later. And I need, how many? I need 8 M3x6s because we are mounting these 2 tabs. I'm not sure what they're for. They mount right back here, and we're mounting these mud guards. So when those go, that's left, this is right. So and see, this is a perfect place to use aluminum because these mud guards, you know, there's no real structural strength required here other than just keeping them from falling off. And they are super light by comparison to steel, and even they're even about 10% lighter than the titanium. They're about 1/3 the weight of steel. So I mean, this is just such a perfect example of a place where you can use aluminum and not worry about it. Okay, let's see what direction these point. Okay, it looks like the angle, the steeper angle goes to the inside, and they bolt on top. And honestly, I do not know what these are for. I really don't. Because they don't have any description for them. When you're working with aluminum screws and titanium, but aluminum even more so, always be sure that you've got the wrench firmly seated into the head of the screw. You don't want to strip it out. Now our second mud guard. Okay, and now we need 4 M4x15mm flathead screws to mount the rear assembly to the chassis. That is going to mount back here, and these are probably 14s. We'll find out in a moment. Yep. And if I was using steel, this would be probably several grams heavier than what we've got. Do I have them here to compare? They must be in a different bag, or they're over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. just for kicks, let's throw these on the scale. 5.7 grams. I'm sorry. 5.6. 5.58. So let's just say 5.6. And 3.1. 3.12. So 2.5 grams almost. 2.5 grams even. That just keeps adding up, and you go, 2.5 grams is no big deal. Yeah, it's not, but when you keep adding that up, you know, there's going to be another 4 at the front of the same size. Okay, that's 5 grams off. And you keep going and going and going and going, nibbling away at the weight of the car, and all of a sudden, at the end of the day, you know, you've knocked 50 grams off the car. And, you know, when you've got classes that are weight limited, it'd be nice to have to add a little bit of weight to make the weight limit and have the car be as light as it can be for that class versus having the car be over the weight limit by 50 to a couple hundred grams, and there's no way for you to get that weight off without, you know, doing a rebuild with, you know, titanium hardware and carbon fiber pieces, etc. So, you know, something to think about. I guess it depends on how competitive you want to be, and you know, also what your budget is. Now, as before, well, I'm going to just go ahead and do this while these are off. I need to thread these holes. I need to tap them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by hand. I only need to use 1 bolt. But this is definitely, you know, tight, stiff plastic. It's a hard plastic, so I don't want to try cutting the threads with the titanium hardware. And I'm just going to pause the video. Okay. So the holes are threaded. And I really should be using the good wrenches on these. And the car starts coming together. I always like it when you start building things up on the chassis. It's a good sign. Okay. So, let's see. We have this piece. Just going to go in back here. This piece, which is going to go down on the floor here. We have this piece, which goes down on top of that. Okay. Let's see if anything of this relates to setup. Okay, I was just seeing if any of these were, you know, if there was a tuning factor there, and there is not. So, Now we have a bushing right here, IF618, that is going to go into this arm right here, and I assume that that is to allow a little bit of motion so that there can be some flex in the chassis. And that looks like it definitely goes in between there. Let me just see if we know there's no further drawing on that. Okay, so our bushing is right here. We have a pair of them, so there's probably a similar, yes, there's a similar brace, which is probably going to go in the front, and I'm not sure. Well, we'll figure that out down the road. In any event, our bushing just pops right in there. I'm just gonna clean off that little bit of plastic flash right there. So I think what I'm gonna need to do is loosen this bolt here, the long bolt that goes all the way through there. And is that a, yes, it appears to be a 2.5. Remember, that screws into a nut over here, a nylon lock nut. So this is going to allow us to get this piece in place here. We'll tighten that back down in a minute when we figure out the hardware we need for that. So 3x20 cap screw. No. Yes. Yeah, 3x20. Nope. They do not. Let's see about these. Okay, we need... Okay, we need 4 3x8s. Okay. Make sure they're all the same size. Okay. And 3x15. We need 2. And we do not have one of those. We have one, but not the other. Let me see what I've got. I have 3x16s. I don't know if that's going to work. Probably would. Yeah, because those go into a bolt or a nut. It's so low in the car, I think I'll go ahead, and I don't want to rob from the other batch of titanium that I have over here, because that's stuff that I bought for the Techno. So I'm going to go ahead and use these, and I'm just going to mark them off on the plans as being something that I need to replace if I want to. So the 3x20 cap screw goes in from the side here. There we go. Now I want to back that out a little bit and keep some movement there, so that can flex. Okay, so hope nothing got missed there. My camera was a little hot. So these two screws go in from below. and up through this little plastic panel here. And we actually need to drop those down like that so we can get that started. It's hard to get that going. Let's try easing up on that a bit. Okay, let's try using a little leverage. There we go. So I hope you saw how I did that. Basically, I had to put a driver in here and kind of press forward and get this to flex the chassis a little bit so that I could get that first screw in. Now I can get the other one in. Okay. Okay, bag number 3 and bag number 5. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.